When COVID started spreading all over the world, it suddenly affected the lives of people in such a way that nobody ever imagined something like this could happen. So on March 2020, Australian government decided to shut down the border to stop the virus spread in the country. Many of us thought it would be under control within a month and the border would be open soon. But it took more than a year for the world to figure out how to deal with it. Till date, as most of the other countries are already open to travel, but Australia is still closed. As a result, the most affected group was the international students and the graduates who were overseas. Thousands of those are still stranded outside Australia and are in the hope of returning back soon. After the border was shut down in March 2020, the Australian government supported international students stuck overseas by announcing unprecedented visa concession, which means now they will be allowed to apply for and be granted a temporary graduate visa outside Australia in cases where they have met all the requirements. That was the great news for international students stuck overseas. But there was one group who was left behind. Thousands of existing temporary visa holders are still outside Australia who are stuck overseas due to the border closure. The concession, unfortunately, do not consider the existing temporary graduate visa holders. Around 14,485 visa holders outside Australia are desperately looking to return back. According to the data of Department of Home Affairs, in between 1st August 2020 and 31st March 2021, out of 9,903 people on 485 visas who applied for inward travel exemption, only 344 were allowed to enter Australia during that period. This means thousands of others temporary visa holders who are outside Australia are in the verge of expiring their visas, and hundreds of such visas are already expired. Most of the international graduates stuck overseas with valid visa felt like they have been left out. They are frustrated, they are anxious, but more than that, they are miserable for not being able to utilize their once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of temporary graduate visa. Australia is by far one of the best countries for international students to study and live. They have the top universities of the world, their cultures are diverse, they have easy access to visa processing, and they are most welcoming. But being an international student is not an easy. In fact, most of the international students who are mostly young have made huge sacrifices to come and study in Australia. They and their family have made a huge amount of investment of their time and money so that they could have better opportunities after study. Temporary graduate visa is once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for international students in Australia. It is granted for 18 months or 2 years depending upon the course of study. It allows international students who have completed their degree to gain work experience in their area of study. Many students choose to study in Australia because the graduate visa gives them an opportunity to stay here, gain work experience, and have the chance to become a permanent resident later on. But thousands of such graduate visa holders are stranded overseas for no fault of their own, and their visas are running out. Day in and day out, they all are waiting for the Australian government to consider their voice and acknowledge their rights. Australia has always been such a welcoming nation, and we, the Sydney Reflect team, believes that the Australian government will show care and consideration for these young people who have chosen Australia to spend their time. It is not their fault. They were overseas when the border closed. So we strongly urge Australian government to consider this fact and provide them the opportunity to utilize their once-in-a-lifetime temporary graduate visa for their professional development by the best way possible.